we're going to make what I call an inside-out ring using half-round wire. If you roll your round wire through a rolling mill to make it half round, always be prepared to cut a few millimeters off the end because it always distorts the end. So I'm using 2 millimeter wide, 1.5 millimeter high half round wire for this, and I'm going to put the half round on the inside and the flat on the outside. So get your ring size in millimeters. Use this part of your calipers to measure. Don't let it drop down in the groove. Wiggle it around, get the big size, add the thickness, the height of your wire, multiply by 3.14. This will give you the exact size. File the ends flat. And number 2, cut flat hand file. There's usually a safe edge on these, smooth edge, no teeth. You can check to see that it's flat. Anneal, just by bringing this up to a dull red. Quench and pickle, and we pickle to get the oxides off. Form this with your flat round pliers, but be really careful, because if you grab this really hard, you're going to put little dents on the inside. So be as gentle as possible. You could form this around your ring mandrel, but you still need to be careful. So bring the ends down so that they're pretty much horizontal, and you can treat it a bit like a jump ring, where you just open it this way, push it past itself, bring it back, and when you bring it back, it'll have tension holding it together. If you have a bit of a gap, which I do, so you can see it has a gap here at the top, just hold this sideways on your bench peg. Keep the ends squeezed together. I'll zoom in. And you have to keep the ends squeezed together, otherwise the saw blade will just push it apart. And I'm up at the very end of the V, so that when the saw goes through, it'll go into the wood rather than my finger. And at about a 45-degree angle, now I'll zoom right in so that you can see this groove. And I'll turn it this way. So we're just right into the top of the groove. And when it goes through, you can see the ring close up. So when you get it to the point where it's perfect, there will probably still be a little bit of a gap, because when you sawed through, it will have taken the metal away. So you can see as I squeeze this, it closes up. So we're going to use our ring bending pliers, which are these big bad boys. Be really careful with these, because it's easy to do a lot of damage. So we're just going to go opposite the join and gently squeeze, and that will close this right up. So we're ready to solder this now. For this one, I'm holding it in my third hand, and I'm opposite the join. I'm down well away from the join. So I'm just going to flux the top, and I'm going to pick solder this one. You could rest the solder up on top. So heat up your pick, keep it red, pick up your solder, and heat the join. And you can see that I have my flame going away so that I'm not heating the bottom. Just bring it up, the flux will go clear, the solder will flow. If it's not in quite the right position, you can push it around with your solder pick. Quench it and pickle it. Dry it off. Round it up on your ring mandrel using your rawhide hammer. Flip it over. And when you have it nice and round, sand it back. And you always wait until it's rounded up before you sand it back, because it's easier to sand on the top of the curve. I'm using 400 grade paper on my sanding stick. And if you did this correctly, it won't take much. Sort this out. That was about 10 strokes. Now I'll use the split mandrel to tidy up the inside. Same paper, and like I say, if you have done a good job lining up the sides of your ring in the beginning, this part is easy because it won't take much. You could hold this in a ring clamp like this. I usually just hold it in my fingers because it won't take much. It shouldn't take much. And always be sure that you're running the paper back and forth across the join, because otherwise you're going to wear a groove down. So don't do that. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, you could just hallmark this, polish it up, and you'd be finished. And it gives you a nice ring that's really comfortable to wear. I think the trademark for these inside-out rings is actually comfort fit, in quotes. And it is really comfortable with the half-round part on the inside. Now with this flat on the outside, it leaves wide open the field for what you could do with it. You could texture it, you could gypsy set stones in it. I'm going to set a pearl in. What a surprise. I have been playing with pearls lately. So what we do for the setting is we go opposite the solder join, so that whatever we solder on here won't open up the join underneath. Yeah? So now I'm going to play with it a bit. I'm going to take my round burr and, just holding this in my fingers, I'm going to hold it sideways, spin it up, and I'm going to put a depression where I'm going to drill for my pearl peg. So a 1 millimeter hole, and I'm not going all the way through, I'm only going to go about halfway through the ring, because that way we can have our solder up here. We won't have to do anything to it. We won't have to tidy up the inside. So just hold it on your bench peg, and I loop it over this end corner like that. So if it does perchance go through, it won't go into your finger. So that's all I need. Now I'm going to solder my 0.8 millimeter square wire on the top. I'm just resting my square wire on the top. But just a spot of flux at that point. Don't need a lot. And I'm just going to dry out the flux, place a little piece of solder right where it's touching the wire and the ring. Now the ring is a lot thicker than the wire, so you need to make the ring hotter. So there it flowed, and we're ready to quench and pickle. Now even before I pickle, you can see that nice smooth curve of the solder, and that's what we want. I'm going to punch out a disc. I've got a disc cutter for the cup for the ring. Now normally when you make a cup to go under a pearl, you want it to be either the same size as the pearl or slightly smaller, but I'm going to use it to protect the pearl, so I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger, like I did the floating disc ring. And to show you how I did the crosshatch pattern, I'm just on my wooden block on my bench. I'm going to take my French jeweler's hammer, which has a fairly sharp edge, and I'm just going to put a few marks on it, like this, and turn it 90 degrees. And do it again. Nice and simple, but it's a nice, effective pattern. So now I'm going to punch my disc out. So first I'm going to drill a hole in the middle. And that way, when I put this in my disc cutter, I can use my little aligning tool. I can get that right in the center. Now, when you have a pattern on your metal and you're going to punch a disc, put the pattern down, and I use these little aligning tools. So if you have a hole in the middle of your metal, you can put this in and it will hold it exactly in the middle, exactly. So then we'll just snug this down, shift our handle around so it's out of the way. Take this out, put your cutter in, give it a good smack, and you can see I've got a pretty heavy hammer. So there's our disc.